Evening, everybody. How are you? Good to see everyone in here. We got 5 in here waiting. That's awesome. So want to apologize first for last week. I was all set up. It was going to be a surprise, kind of going live from the camper, and literally within 15 minutes of going live,
all set up. It was going to be a surprise.
Pause. There you go. Within 15 minutes or so of going live, I lost my Wi-Fi outside, so it was a big mess. So that's why I canceled it kind of at the last minute, and so I'll try that probably again next week. But we had some news this week come out regarding our buck test. That we did a video on that probably 2 months ago, and we got our results back this week. So I figured we'd kind of devote. We've gotten a lot of input, questions, and feedback from people wanting to know how did our goats do up in West Virginia. And so that's what I'm going to talk about tonight, answer any questions. It's really kind of fascinating stuff. A friend of mine who I work with, I say work with loosely. She lives out in Idaho. We're colleagues. And, when I posted the results from the West Virginia buck test, she said, "What language are you speaking?" And I said, I'm speaking buck breeder language. And, we enjoy it. It's kind of a different world in terms of interacting with buck breeders or goat breeders from around the country, and really kind of getting into more than just kind of the lineage of the goat, or more than getting into just breeding goats, but more the lineage and the pedigree and the genetics. It's just really cool stuff. So who we got in here? We got Paula is in here. Welcome, Paula. Free handling maid. So Nisi said she's going to be in and out. She's cooking dinner, so I appreciate you even listening. And Nisi, I appreciate it. Alicia Hall, welcome. Who else we got in here? Little Frenchie in Big Texas. Good evening, madam. How are you? Down under fella. How are you, sir? Welcome. And looks like that's it. We got 7 in here is what it says. So that's kind of what happened last week. Was I planned on going live, had to cancel at the last minute. I actually was going to do that again this week, go from the camper, and decided once we got our test results back that I was not going to do that. So bottom line is we did exceptionally well. So it's a funny story. We took our goats up there 2.5 months or so ago up to West Virginia, and there's 178 goats. We never anticipated we would have to go back up to West Virginia to get those goats, because we frankly didn't expect them to finish anywhere near the top. We would have been really super happy if they finished in the top 50%. That would have kind of reinforced that we're kind of doing the right thing, moving in the right direction, and we would have been really, really happy with that. We knew we had good genetics in our herd. And we knew management-wise that we were kind of doing the right things, but what we didn't know is how our genetics and how our animals would stack up performance-wise when compared directly with other breeders' stock. And that's where we were really, really surprised. So, as I said, we were never planning on going back up to West Virginia to get these animals. They were supposed to go to a sale barn in 3 weeks up in Ohio. The test administrator at West Virginia University was going to take all of the bucks from the test to the sale barn that were not brought back home by the consigners or by the home farms. And in fact, 2 days before we got the results, the administrator of the West Virginia test, he sent out an email saying, if you want your animals taken to the sale barn up in Ohio, I need to know by that Friday. And the results come out on, I believe it was Saturday they came out. So Kimberly, LaLa, sent an email to the test administrator basically saying, yeah, take them to the sale barn. And when we got the results, we had to send like an all cap letter. So I guess that means you're yelling at somebody when you email them in all caps, that we don't want you to take our goats to the sale barn. So we had to figure out how are we going to get our overachievers back down here to Florida, because we never anticipated making another trip up to West Virginia. That's a long, long, long drive. I think it took us last time. It's right at about 12 hours. Not a particularly fun drive because it's a lot of twisty turn. It's scenic, it's pretty, but it's just all interstate. And I really, if I could drive on 2-lane roads or state highways, I'd be happy. But these are all federal interstates, and people drive like lunatics, and just not an enjoyable drive. So let me show you what we got. Let me share this. Again, we were really happy. So we're going up on the 2nd. We're leaving next Friday to drive up to West Virginia, completely unexpected, and to pick our boys up. So here's what we got. So this is, let me kind of explain to you. So this, you might find this interesting, because a lot of people are not, they're not familiar with the technical aspects of how livestock is graded. And this is basically how livestock is evaluated in terms of performance measures. So 3 different ratios that are really kind of key indicators. The first one is REA ratio. That's the ribeye. So for those of you that may not know where that is, that's around the ribs right here. So what they're looking at is at the end of the test, they basically take an ultrasound on every one of these 178 animals, and they measure the amount of muscling and the amount of fat that is in this rib area, because that's where the ribeye comes from. So, and then they determine a ratio for that by dividing it by 100, which is called the hundredweight. So our ratio in that area was on 185. ADG was average daily gain. So that's the number of pounds per day that an animal increases in terms of its overall weight. So ours was, this one particular goat, number 38, came in at a ratio of about 112. Not as good as we would have liked to have seen, but sufficient to put us up in the top 14 spot. This next one, this is really the reason that we sent our animals up to this test, because this is the one test in the country that really is measuring how your animal stacks up in terms of fecal ed count. So what they do is once they deliver the animal, there's a 3-week warm-up period. What they're doing is letting the animal rest, get acclimated to its surroundings. It's in this gigantic barn that's probably 60, 75 meters long, divided into 3 or 4 areas where they've got the little bucklings divided up. Now, keep in mind, these bucklings are only, when we took them up there were 4. All of these were born the first week of January in this year. So when they went up there, they were only 4 months old. Let me check the comments here. Talk amongst yourselves. Down under fella, I appreciate it. That's we were pleasantly surprised. So this FEC ratio, once they get through this warm-up period, then they will inject each animal with a pretty heavy load of barber pole worms. The scientific name is H. contortus, is the worm name. Let me show you again. I get into this technical stuff. Let me show you this. This is kind of cool. Oh wow, I don't know how that happened there. All right, scratch that. I don't know how that happened. So I was going to show you a picture of the picture of how they're measuring this. So they basically take a fecal sample, and it's not all that pleasant. They basically go in with 2 fingers when they get the animal, and they go in there in the anus and take out a good handful of poop, and then that's what they're analyzing. So there's a fixed methodology that they go through for analyzing what the worm load is in that poop, and then that becomes the rating. So let me go put you back up here. I don't have Rick on tonight. He is taking the night off. He had something that he had to take care of, so he is doing that. So he generally does all this technical stuff. So that's where the FEC ratio coming in. They're basically measuring the proficiency with which that animal who's been injected with a worm load manages to shed that load without any worming intervention whatsoever. That's been a gigantic problem with the goat industry in Florida, or in the country, in the United States, and probably around the world, but particularly in the United States, is the kind of and a resistance that many goat breeds, in particular boar goats, have developed to the commercially available dewormers because they've been really, really overused, which is, and I'll show you kind of how we don't worm our goats. So let me show you this here. So this is on test. Okay, I'm just going to take you to our 4 boys right here. So this is the date that they were delivered up to West Virginia University. This is their weigh-in weight. This is the date. Remember I said there's a warm-up period. So on 6/16 is when they went off the warm-up period and actually entered the test. So this was the worm load right here. 38 had 1,300. 45 had 350, 47 had 450, 51 had 2,200. Now the threshold, generally speaking, for when you will actually worm an animal is about 2,000. So all of these, with the exception of this 51, which was Sigrid's kid, was slightly over that threshold. We probably would not have wormed them. In fact, you'll see a lot of zeros here, up and down this. And what this means is that every goat has a worm load of some level. So what these producers did is, prior to this test, they independently wormed all of their animals. You see all these zeros? The ones that have a worm load present are ones that were not wormed. And we don't ever worm our goats unless there's some really specific reason. In fact, this one, number 38, neither his dam nor his sire have ever been wormed on our farm, which is, kind of reflective of kind of the health of some of these kids. So this is the delivery. This was what's called their PCV. Now this is the packed cell volume. Basically, it's the percentage of red blood cells that they measure after they centrifuge blood samples. So these numbers should be in the mid 20s to low 30s, and all of ours were in this mid 20s, even with this worm load. So we knew we had, when we went up there, we had a really good sampling of bucks. That we knew. We had, I think, total production this year was 55 kids. And of them, it was slightly more bucklings than doelings. And we took a load of, I want to say, 15 bucklings to market. And the only one, it must have been more than that, it must have been about 17 bucklings to market. And we kept these 4 back because these were the 4 kind of best built structure and the highest average daily gain out of all of those kids. So the coming in numbers were really good for all 4 of these. So let's go back now to the actual outcome measures. This is the final results. So this number 38, this is the one that scored out of all 178 goats. This one scored number 14. So overall, he did super, super well. Bodart Kikos, welcome. Yeah, we were pretty stoked when we got our results. You come in a little bit late, but we had no intention of even going back up to get these bucklings. We would have been happy finishing in the top 50%. But these boys did really well for us, so we were super happy with that. If you guys don't know Bow Dart, go check them out. They're another Kiko breeder over in the great state of Texas. So this one was, if you guys got questions about any of this stuff, make sure you got questions, drop them in there, technical questions or not, and I will try to answer them. Particularly if you got goat folks in here. I think most of the folks in here are not other than Bow Dart. So this was the top performing overall. So that's what this first set of characteristics is. Now we were happy with this 14, but then we go down and we start looking at where the other ones finished. So number 51 finished in the 33rd spot. Number 45 finished in the 61st spot. And number 47, which is the weakest of the four that we delivered, finished in the 109th spot. So 3 of the 4 of the goats that we took up there finished in the top third of all goats in this test. This one right here, the doe for this kid, we already knew, we've known since kidding season that she's going to be culled in October. She's actually going to market, but she produced a kind of a standout kid this year, so we put him up there. But when we look at how the very reason that she is getting culled, that doe, is because her kids, compared to all other kids on our farm, are generally, they're average, mostly on the lower end of average. And you kind of see the same thing here. Out of the 4 kids that we took, that was the lowest of the 4. And what we've really kind of seen since we started breeding goats 4 years ago is it's getting really hard to cull goats now, because we've gotten rid of the junk, and so now we have a really fairly strong herd. The underperformers, they've become relatively easy to pick out. Those go pretty quickly, but we don't have a whole lot of those anymore. This one right here, she was a standout goat. With that one buck this year, wasn't a standout. Last year was the first year that we bred her, and we're looking for really good production. So if she would have finished in the top third, then we probably may have considered pulling her back, but that didn't happen, and it kind of reinforced the decision that we'd already decided to make. So let's go down to this next one here. So this is that ribeye measure that I was talking about. So this is around the waist area. In this one, we had, so this is basically a measure of muscling. How muscled is that animal? And we're looking at market animals. After they reach a certain weight, the market price on that animal begins going down. But if you have a stable muscled goat, that's full, they can bring a better weight at market, or a better price at market. So here we had the top finishers. So we won this category outright with, again, that number 38. Those of you that have been around the channel for a long time, you probably remember last year in our animal showcase, we did a video on the notorious Rose. This is Rose's kid. Who else we got in here? My Alabama farm life, just sitting back listening. This is fascinating. Kathleen, I'm glad you think it's fascinating. I'm hoping that people's eyes aren't rolling around in their head. LaLa likes the day-to-day management stuff. I get into the technical stuff, into the technical details. I'm like the numbers guy, and I kind of give her some guidance in terms of which animals might be considered for cull, and but she ultimately makes the decisions on these. I mean, we had one that was one of our herd sires, one of our junior herd sire. We've also highlighted him. We've heard him talk about him, Heat Seeker. Well, his mother was on the block as a potential cull animal this year because of her teat and bag structure. And we had the vet out today, gave us kind of a, she doesn't look like the best, but, she produces incredible kids. She's the only goat on the farm that every kid that she's ever produced for us, we've kept. And we cull about 80% of the animals that are born here, but we can't have animals that cost us a vet visit every year either by coming out because they get mastitis. And she's kind of had a history with us, but boy, does she produce good kids. If all else fails, we may end up just kind of flushing her, which is collecting embryos from her, collecting eggs from her, and doing some artificial insemination with fertilized eggs. But that's down the road. What else we got in here? Roland, getting it done north of 7. Welcome, my friend. Welcome. Down under fella, goat knowledge is like looking at Chinese alphabet to me, but interesting. Well, goats, I think a lot of people, and we've talked to a lot of people that say they want to get into goats, and they come to the farm and they see what we have, and we have Kiko. I think we're probably around 55 now. We might be down in the upper 40s. I don't know day to day. But then we're also starting a Nigerian dwarf herd. So I think we're up to 8 or 9 of those. And the reason we started the Nigerian dwarf herd is we can sell all of the goat that we breed. The problem is that most of the calls, I'd say 80-90% of the calls that we get that are not initiated by us, are wanting pet goats. And a Kiko goat is a full size. Let me show you some pictures here. So our Kiko goats are not goats that are particularly friendly. They are big animals. Let me give you a good example. So this is Rose. This is the one who won that test. All right, so this is Rose. If you recall that number 38, this is her. Now Rose weighs about 125 pounds. She's by most standards, she's not a particularly gigantic goat, but she is stout and she produces incredibly good babies. This one is Sigrid, the white one, and this was the number 51 in the Buck Test. So here you got two mamas that produce just excellent kids. Rose is about 6 years old, and Sigrid this was her first kidding season that these kids came out of. So most times on a first time mama, their kids are not particularly large, or they can be on the smaller side and often will deliver a single. Well, Rose has always delivered triplets, and Sigrid gives us doubles every year, and they're pretty hefty sizes. So to tell you how productive these two are, Rose, I don't know the stats on Sigrid, but Rose, for the last 2 years, she, like I said, weighs about 120 pounds, and she weaned 135 pounds on average of kids, 3 kids. We bred her for the last 2 years, and she's weaned over her body weight for the past 2 years. That's how productive she is as a mama in terms of feeding these babies and raising them. So she's really just an amazing animal. I'm in the process of selling our property with my parents. Too far away from me. Can't do a lot of jobs safely anymore, fortunately. Well, that's too bad. My Alabama farm life. I do want goats, but it's too much by myself. Yeah, that's where I was kind of getting at, Kathleen. They are a lot of work. Nigerian dwarfs are easier. They are much more gentle. I would say before you get into goats, I hear a lot of people say, I want goats. And the first question I ask is, what do you want goats for? And the most common answer that I get is, I won't have to mow my yard anymore. Well, newsflash, goats really don't. I'm not saying they won't eat grass. They will eat grass, but it is not their preferred food. They will eat flowers, plants, anything that you don't want them to eat. They will eat weeds, anything that is not grass. They will eat first before they eat the grass. If that's all they have, such as bahia, we've planted field bahia, they will eat the heck out of that. They will put a killing on that butt quick, but it's not something that they prefer. So this one is Rose and Sigrid. Let me show you who's the other one, Leia. I'll show you a picture of Leia. Leia is the herd. She is the herd matriarch, so she eats by herself. No one challenges her. She just does what she wants to do, and pretty impressive animal. She checks in at around 180 pounds, which was bigger than the buck that we mated her to last year. All right, what's a bad picture of her? So that's Leia. Let me find a better picture of her. There we go. This is Leia right here. So she comes in at about 180 pounds. This picture doesn't really do her justice. But she is anything in here number 45. She was the other one that was just a really good size animal this year. But nobody messes with Leia. Shoot, the bucks don't even mess with Leia. She's a big girl. All right, where were we? We were on. So this is back to this test. So out of this one, we finished first. This is that ribeye area. So this is basically measures of muscling. Finished first, 9th, 26th, and 57th. So all of our goats were in almost the top 25%. So about the top 30% for sure. And in my opinion, this is probably, other than the fecal egg count, this muscling category, REA, is probably one of the ones that I would like to see them, because this is the one that when you look at the animal, it's the wow factor. Other than sheer size, it is the one that says, wow, that is a filled out, full, bulky animal. And all four of these finished exceptionally well in that muscling category. So going down, any questions? So Kathleen says, I was looking at forest management, milk, and food. See how fast I get distracted. I was answering in the middle of answering a question, and I got distracted. So first, know why you're getting those animals. I've seen a lot of folks say we want them because we won't have to mow our yard. That's an absolute falsehood, because they're going to eat everything you don't want them to eat before they ever touch your yard. So any flowers you have, any probably things they shouldn't eat that can probably kill them, they're going to eat it anyway. Goats are natural browsers. They will eat forage over anything unless you make it easy to eat. If you provide them a grain, they're going to eat that first. But they spend their entire day putting food into their rumen so that it can begin to ferment and break down. But when you look at a goat, you'll always see them chewing their cud. That's a real thing, where they're just kind of grinding the food that they vomit back up into their mouth, and they keep chewing it and chewing it. And every time they re-swallow it, it goes into another stomach. And until ultimately they've taken all the vitamins and minerals and nutrients that they can out of that food. So I would say, Kathleen, know what you want. If you want a dairy goat, those are, in my opinion, are probably a little bit easier to handle. And in terms of efficiency, Nunya, Texas on the back door. Thanks, Rick. I was eating. Sorry about that, man. That's funny. Got to pop out for a few. Be back. Be back soon, Paula. So, yeah, the dairy goats are probably a little bit easier to manage, both from a day-to-day management, in my opinion, and even feeding. I mean, we can take on a paddock that's probably a half an acre, and we can put let's just use equivalent numbers here, probably 4 Kiko goats on that half acre paddock. They're going to plow through anything that's edible in that paddock in probably 3 to 4 days. Now we can take some Nigerian dwarfs or Nubians and put them on that same half acre paddock, an equivalent number, and they won't even come close to eating the forage that's available within that paddock. They just eat a lot less. Yep, they will probably die here on farm. Natural causes, of course. Do you guys got goats? Nunya, Texas? When I decided to take the leap, I thought about getting 2 wethers on a trial basis. If it didn't work out, then they can go to the freezer. That's probably a good way to start, but it doesn't know what kind of animal you're getting. I mean, if you can get the larger breeds would be like the Kiko, like the boar. They are very food intensive. So you either need somewhere for them to forage or something that they don't have to put their head down. Here's kind of a neat little factoid. So when a goat is eating, you will see them, or most animals, you will see them lowering their head down to the ground. This worm that was used in this test, this H. contortus parasite, in nature, it's going to be in the bottom 3 to 4 inches of greenery. As it grows from the ground, it doesn't go above that. So if your animals are eating down below that 3 to 4 inch range, if that's where they're getting most of their forage intake from, there's a good chance they're probably eating more parasite larvae than they were if they didn't have to bend over and eat, which is really kind of important for rotational grazing purposes. And what that means is that you have a pasture or paddock that is untouched, and we try to cycle ours about once a month. We've been doing cross fencing now for pretty close to 3 years. We hope to finish it this winter, but it's just really critical, because if you can let whatever they're foraging on rest for at least a month before you move them back onto it, then that's going to be the natural life cycle of that parasite to hatch out and to mature, and they will die within that 1 month period. I think it's actually 21 days, 22 days. Let me see what Josh here said. So rotational grazing is best to help prevent that. No, absolutely it is. So if you've got, Kathleen, if you're looking at goats and you're going to get goats, you got to have somewhere. I mean, ideally you're able to graze them, because if you're what's called dry lotting them, meaning you're putting them in an area where you're providing them all of their nutritional intake, that's going to get really, really expensive unless you have access to a really good feed store. Here's a good example. This time last year, we were spending for hay that we would feed the goats. We supplement them with a little bit of hay, particularly when they're in their breeding pairs. We were spending, I want to say, just over $4 a bale for a small square bale. Round bales, I want to say, were like $70. This same time, same bale this year, we're paying $7.50 per square bale. So Kimberly's actually sourced somebody locally that we're going to start purchasing square bales from, and they will store it so we can buy it in bulk. It's just gotten crazy. I mean, I don't. Somebody will try to make the argument that it's that virus that's causing, straw prices or hay prices to go up. I don't get how they're connected, but somebody will try to make that argument. But the more that you can rotate them, the better they're going to be. The more that you can keep a goat from having to bend down to that first 3 to 4 inches, the better off they're going to be, because goats are super prone to parasites. Nunya, Texas, $11 a square bale. Are you talking there? For 3-string or for 2 or 3-string? Wow, that's expensive. That's probably in the ballpark for a 3-string bale, which is a much larger bale. If that's a 2-string bale, that's nuts, because that's what I'm talking about is a 2-string bale, and it's about $7.50 per bale here right now. So let's get back to this. So we talked about this ribeye. This is where our herd really did well. So what we're doing now is hopefully we'll be able to make some crosses this year that's going to help us improve on the fecal egg count and the average daily gain. Average daily gain I'm less concerned about. I'd like to get some more work done on this on the fecal side of this, meaning better parasite control, because we don't really use any dewormers unless we absolutely have to. We check what's called the FAMACHA. Some of you may or may not heard of that. So let me show you. I don't think I even have that on here. Hold on. FAMACHA is a way of checking your goat's eyes, and it kind of gives you an idea about how deficient they may be, or the probability that they may be settling into some kind of anemia, not some kind of anemia. So this is something, Kathleen, if you get into goats, that you really want to kind of be at least aware of, so that you can, every time that we're around, we're kind of a hands-on farm. We're not, some farms are completely hands-off. That's not us. Every time we get a chance to put our hands on the animals, we do. And so this is what I'm talking about with FAMACHA. So this is a measure to look at the possibility of anemia. This right here, all this really bright red, this is what you're looking for. This is a normal eyelid. And we're basically looking at this lower eyelid. This is your animal. If you don't do something really quick, that's going to be dead probably within a few days. That's a really bad score. So it's kind of the opposite of what you would expect it to be. So a 1 is a perfectly good FAMACHA. A 5 is a really horrible FAMACHA. This is close to death. You have an anemic animal. May not be worms. It could be, something, could be lice. It could be some other things, but most likely it's going to be worms. There used to be goats here on the farm, and they were used to clear land, and there's tons of browse. We have some pastures. I just need to decide what kind. I love the Nubian Kiko mix. Yeah, and you've got to have good fencing. I mean, that's the one thing that I think a lot of people underestimate. Josh, what do you got? I think you've got some like 4x4 around your place. I've seen in some of your videos, I think. So Nunya, Texas says that's for 2-string. Holy mackerel, that's expensive. Wow. I think Josh has like I think he's got 4x4. That's what we've got around our place. So the one thing that I think a lot of people underestimate with goats is how good they are at escaping from just about anything. If there's a possible way for a goat to get in trouble, they're going to do it. It's just you take your goats. Yes, we did. That's what we're talking about is cottrails hunting and trapping outdoors. They asked, did you take your goats to the WVU Goat Test? Yeah, that's what we're doing is kind of going over some of the results. Most of the time when a Kiko is off to itself, it's not grazing usually a Famacho one. Yep, absolutely. That's one of the hallmark signs is, there's several things you can look at is, I've seen some sites refer to it as they look depressed. So they're off by themselves. Goats are not solitary animals. Goats tend to stay in groups. So cottrails, hunting, trapping, I work there. I take care of them. Well, that's awesome. So, well, thank you for taking care of our goats for the last 3 months. We're going to be up there we're leaving Florida on the 2nd, and we're going to be up there on the 3rd at your barn picking up our 4 boys. So we got number 38, 45, 47, and 51 up there. So you've been taking care of them. I appreciate it. So he says, yeah, I got some 4x4, but I recommend the Stay Tough goat fencing. See, I've seen that on many of the sites that I'm on. I've seen the Stay Tough being recommended, over the 4x4. I frankly don't know what the difference is. We've invested pretty heavily in the 4x4 red brand fence. We've had, I'm not going to say it's been perfect. We've had some failures in it, but it's with, we talked about kind of the big goats and their weight. Goats are, unlike any other livestock that I'm aware of, goats will challenge fencing like crazy. Again, they're experts at getting into any kind of trouble that they possibly can. And so fencing, Kathleen, is going to be really, really important for you. So, even though you may have a lot of browse, try to, fencing is going to be really important, because if you don't have fencing, you're not going to have goats very long, because they're going to wander off. Because if they see, goats, I think they live by that adage. You remember that thing that used to, grass always greener on the other side? Well, I think goats truly believe that, because if they see something that looks better than where they're at, they're gonna fight to go there. We had that doe that I showed you earlier, the white one. The name is Sigrid. Sigrid was a teenage pregnancy. And what do I mean by that? So we generally don't breed our goats until they're at least 18 months old. Sigrid was bred at just shy of 7 months old. Not because we wanted to breed Sigrid, but because Leia or Rose, we don't know which one, broke literally the horizontal strand of the 4x4 red brand fence, and 3 of them got through and got to our bucks. They were only in there for about 3 hours, but when they're in rut, it doesn't take long. And we had babies out of 2 of them that were 7 months old. One of them was stunted. We ended up not keeping either her babies. Neither one of them survived. But Sigrid's did survive, and they excelled. And that's what we actually took to the test, and she finished really, really well. So we're going to breed her again this year. It's just whatever you think a goat can't do, they're going to do. They're fun animals. I love them. They're great to have around, but they can be a significant challenge. All right, going back to this. I hope I'm not boring everybody, because I'm not getting a whole lot of questions here. I use cattle panels, $1 a foot. The rigid panels, is that what you're talking about? Because we use that for in the barn. That's what we make all the walls with, all of the retaining walls, and then back them up with 2x6 boards, which then the goat or the 4x4 panels are then nailed to. So yeah, and they challenge that all the time, but they have not successfully escaped that. there was another video. Kimberly mixes her own feed. So I did a video of, I got her for Christmas. This is no exaggeration. And guys, I would not recommend you doing this unless you have a really understanding wife that really wants it. Is I got my wife a cement mixer for Christmas. Why? Because she wanted a cement mixer. It's just a cheap cement mixer that she now uses to mix her feed. So we've been keeping that in the main structure of the barn, and she just puts a cover over it, and we thought it was safe. Well, she goes out there one morning, and the cement mixer, which is on the back side of the wall, there's no reason a goat would want to get up there, but they've tipped it over, and it's laying on its side. So they tried to climb the cement mixer. Don't have a clue why. They just do it because. It's just don't try to understand them. All right, let me go back to I'm almost done with that. All right, so going back to this test. So this is that ribeye area. We've covered that one. This is the ADG. So this is average daily gain. So we keep statistics for just about everything on the farm. Our average daily gain is about 0.45 to 0.5 is about what we run. So if you look at some of these, like the one that won this category was 0.73. So what that means is that when that goat got there, it weighed 66 pounds. This is ear tag 2368. Weighed 66 pounds. At the end of the test, it weighed 112 pounds. That is a big goat, or a big goat for that period of time. Now, keep in mind, they were only there for 2.5 months. So he was gaining 0.73 pounds per day, putting him in the #1 position. This is where we didn't do, too well. So our highest was number in the 65th position with a 0.43, which is about average for what we do on farm. If I gave that to wife, I might get cement boots. That's what I said. I don't recommend getting a cement mixer for your wife. I got her 2 gifts for Christmas. Both of them were special requests. She got a cement mixer, and she got a wagon with a capacity for 600 pounds that she can pull things around with. And she was just as pleased as a pig in snot. I like that, cement boots. I got 2 goats. I could not imagine all these numbers. All right, so our highest in terms of ADG was 0.43, 65th position. So that's one area that they just didn't really excel in, but they did in the muscling category, which in my opinion, lots of people would probably disagree with me, but I would rather have a really bulky, well-muscled goat than just one that is heavy, because you can have a large goat that is heavy but still skinny. And we've got one. Our junior herd sire is but he's in rut right now, and he's right in the middle of mating, so he's losing weight right now. So, but second one was 84th position, so 0.39, 0.35. So I don't know why some of these numbers were as low as they are, because we average, like I said, around 0.45 to 0.5. I don't know the feed that they were on. It was not what we feed them. It was not forage based. All of these animals are in a confinement barn, if you will, and they're getting feed fed to them that is mixed. So I don't know. I mean, I would imagine that it's a high calorie feed, but I don't know for sure. But that's kind of our goal for next year, is to do better in that category. So that's something that we'll be watching a little more closely. And then this is fecal egg count. Our top finisher here was number 48, followed by 64, and then 92 and 94. So all of them finished roughly in the top 60%. This one here, number 38, was really kind of the over performer in all other categories. So surprised he finished as low as he did. So when you look at all of these, how well the 4 of them did, this is our overall ranking. So I think I calculated it was 38 total farms, 38 total producers that contributed or consigned animals to this test. And out of those 38, we finished 7th overall. So I was just absolutely stoked that we finished that high. And this is against some of the largest farms in the country that are well represented at a lot of the goat sales, breeding sales, and things like that. So we were pretty happy. We finished much better than we ever anticipated finishing. But it kind of gave us an idea of where we need to really kind of put some additional kind of breeding stock. So what we're looking at now is going out and trying to identify those genetics that are going to bring in some more parasite resistance that we would like to improve in that area. Again, we've got some stock that we have. Neither one of our bucks that we breed, our senior sires, have ever been wormed, ever, and they're 2.5 years old. The junior sire has never been wormed. Now, most of the mothers have, with the exception of Rose that I showed you the picture of. Most of the mothers are generally wormed after they kid because they have a worm bloom then. They're so busy. Most of the nutrients are going to feeding the kids that some of the resistance naturally that they have to the worms kind of falters a little bit. And, so we tend to see lower FOMACHs post-kidding in the does. Britain Farms, welcome. Didn't see you come in. So that's about all I got. So we're going to be heading up there next Friday. I thought we were going to be picking up some others for a couple of other farms, but they've found some other arrangements and then bringing them back. So we got a couple of really busy couple of weeks coming up. So we're going to pick up these 4 bucklings next Friday. We'll pick them up on Saturday in West Virginia, drive back home, and then the following week is when fair starts. So we are taking three of our boar. She's 100% boar. We're taking 100% Nubian, registered Nubian, registered boar, and a Kiko kid to the fair. One is going to the petting zoo. The Kiko kid is Kiko doe, and the other 2 will be Madeline will be showing them. So there'll be videos coming out of that. So she's got some big shoes to fill because 2 years ago, which is the last time they had a local fair, in 19, Madeline won grand champion in the meat goat class and in showmanship. So we got high expectations for this this boar that she's taking this year. This is a new one. Name's Eclipse, solid white with a black spot right in the middle of her back. So really beautiful goat. So LaLa's been filling her hindquarters out for pretty much the last 3 weeks. Had them in confinement, fattening them up, and Madeline's been working with them almost daily, walking them and getting them kind of leash trained so that hopefully she pays attention while they're in the show ring. And she comes out with a good result this year as well. So that's what we're hoping. Week from this coming Friday. I'm not sure what you mean, Paula. We're leaving to go to West Virginia on the 2nd, and we will be back the 3rd. And then the week after that, I believe, is when fair starts. I think I might be wrong. I think it's the week, but I'm pretty sure it's the week after that. I thought you meant she was filling out Madeline's hindquarters. No, we're not filling out Madeline's. No, we're filling out the goat's hindquarters. LaLa's got all the tricks of the trade. So if you want to fill out the goat's hindquarters, instead of allowing them to eat, when she does give them, they get about a half a cup of grain a day. So instead of putting that onto the fence line feeder, she basically elevates it so they have to stand up on their back legs and hold themselves up. So they're probably, that the feeder's probably elevated nearly 4 foot, and that's what they're eating out of, which forces them to stand up on their rear legs while they're eating. And by doing that, she's been feeding like that for probably close to 3 months, and you can see how muscled her rear legs are now. So they've done a really, really great job getting this animal. But the problem that we're going to have with her, and Madeline has said this as well, is she is completely spoiled. She doesn't care for the leash, but I think once she gets into the show ring, that she will feel comfortable with Madeline, and will hopefully calm down. That's what happened with the one that's how her previous one that she was show, which was Pearl, that's how she reacted. So once she gets into a show ring where it's wide open and she's in an unfamiliar place, she kind of gets right up to Madeline. So that's kind of what we're hoping will happen this time. If not, then it'll be a funny video. Folks, that's all I've got for you. Have you ever shopped for leggings on Amazon? No? Well, I did today. I have not shopped for leggings. I've never worn leggings, Paula. I don't think I would look good in leggings. Some hindquarters that defy science. Just I know what you mean. Every time I'm not gonna go there. I'll get in trouble. You want to see leggings that defy logic or defy nature? Go to the Atlanta Hartsfield Airport and just people watch. That's all I'm going to say about that. Every time I go up there, I just nod my head that somebody should have a talk with that person. I would be honest, but that's going to get me into trouble if I'm completely honest. My thoughts out there. Oh goodness, folks, I'm gonna sign off. I know I'm a little shy of an hour. I gotta go out and help LaLa. She's had a long day. She's had the vet out here for about half the day. Doing health checks and all that stuff, and getting them a clean bill of health so we can take them up to the fair. So she's had a long day. All right, I say, Rick, fishnets. No, I'm not. You're not gonna see me in fishnets either. Just not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. Now, sometimes I feel kind of self-conscious and sure. All right, folks, I'm gonna sign off. Always remember, treat others as you would like to be treated. Be well, folks. Have a great week, and I will talk to you. I will talk to you next week. Keep tuned. I think we got a rabbit ear tattooing video. I think on Friday. I think it's either that or going through I got to build a pig pen because we're getting our piglets here in the next probably 2 months. So I got to get on the stick and get our pig pen built. So that's what's coming out Friday. One of those two. I'm not sure which one Rick's going to do. Stay well, folks. Take care. Good night.